but if folks have got questions or comments or things they want to quiz you on as we go, just drop them into the questions or the chat, which is on the right-hand side.
Yes,
and my plan over to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, James. And my plan is to keep an eye on the chat, because I would like to try and keep this as interactive and hopefully engaging as possible. So I can see some people are dropping in. We've got Helena, Lorna, Patience, hello, Toby, Jenny, etc. So as people are coming in, I just want to say a little bit about the plan for the next hour and kind of what I'm aiming to cover. But I've got quite a loose plan, and if we need to sort of pivot, then we can do that as well, right? My aim is that in an hour's time, you have an understanding of what Quarto is, what the benefits are, and how it might be able to help your team. So I've aimed this more at sort of non-technical folk who have maybe heard of this tool and want to know a little bit more. So there's no prior coding, no prior experience necessary at all. Now, if you have used Quarto a little bit before, you're welcome to stick around, and you are welcome to drop in some more technical questions. But the aim is very much more like, how do we get going with Quarto and what that is. So hopefully that sounds appropriate for the people joining the call. I would love to, in the chat, if you could just drop a message in the live chat to let me know if that sounds like a bit of you, or why you're here effectively. If anyone's got any particular reasons they've dropped into this workshop, if you've got any challenges that you're having around reporting in your teams, please do drop a message in the chat and let me know why you're here effectively, or if you've got any existing questions about Quarto. In terms of how we're going to run things, I've put together a little website, which actually itself is built in Quarto, because Quarto is very cool. You can build websites and such as well. Just with the slides, which are quite minimal, and a few resources that I might sort of update after the session as well. So this just allows you to check in on the materials after today. Feel free to share this with anyone in your team as well. We got some stuff coming in. Thank you. Sharon's just started using Quarto. Good to learn from others. Fantastic. Ian's used R Markdown and Quarto in the past, but intrigued about the manager's perspective. Sure thing. And if we do end up with people that are slightly more Quarto savvy in the room, that's totally fine. We can start to nerd out a little bit. Helena says she's used Quarto but not made any parameterized reports yet. Okay, cool. So it might be that we maybe whiz over some of the introductory stuff a little bit more and play a little bit more with the parameterized reporting. Cool. They're really useful. Keep them coming in. Why are you here? What you're hoping to get out of the session. In terms of the exercises, this is a new experiment for me. I've tried to use something called Binder, which I still don't quite understand how it works for free, really. I'm very lucky. But there's this open source tool that will effectively spin up an RStudio instance with a bunch of stuff that I've already, some sort of predefined exercises. So I'll put it in the chat in case you want to have a look. There will be links to these later on when we get to the exercises. It might take about 2 minutes to start up the first time. And I think if you don't touch it for 10 minutes, it might time out. But hopefully that's something that you'll be able to play with. So it's got Quarto and a few exercises installed for you to have a bit of a play as and when we go through. Okay, I will share my screen and start chatting properly. Share screen, entire screen. Here we go. Never used Quarto, really curious about it. Perfect. You are very much my target audience, so you are very welcome. And the for managers bit, I think came from, I gave this as a talk a few years ago, and I just really wanted to, well, before working at the strategy unit as a data scientist, I worked as a professional R educator. And I did quite a lot of training with NHS analysts. So I'd come into NHS teams and try and help them do learn R, learn Quarto. And so many of their day-to-day tasks were, I need to do this weekly report or this monthly report on waiting lists or maternity statistics. And it was always a bit of a stress and a bit of a pressure. And in fact, sometimes my analysts had to drop out of the R training or the Quarto training because they were getting pressure from their managers to go and run these reports. And it wasn't it was quite hard for the analysts. You'd get changes last minute, you'd have to go and rewrite things, and it just felt like there should be a better way. And so, I just want to sort of share how Quarto can be used to kind of automate some of the reporting process. Just reading in the chat again, new member of staff brought it with them, very much in the manager camp. I see the great things it does, but not how it works. Perfect, Jenny, this is the session for you. And like I said, if you do message in the chat, I am keeping an eye on it. Okay, so here's the quick spiel, and then we'll get into playing around with it, because I want you to play around with Quarto. So this is Maria. She's a public health analyst working in a trust, and she delivers monthly reports on NHS workforce statistics. So what Maria might do is she might use Excel to clean the data. She might use R to do a little bit of modelling or calculate some averages. And then she uses Word to write a report branded with her NHS trust. So like I said, start in Excel, maybe hop to R to do some coding. And then at some point she needs to make some graphics, might make those in Excel, might make those in R. But at some point they need to go into this Word document, which is going to be sent around her managers. So at some point she needs to sit down, copy those tables across from R or from Excel, copy in the plots, put in the captions, maybe write some text, maybe some metadata about when the report was for, what trust it was for, etc. And that's what she has to do every month. But it's never that easy, right? Sometimes you're doing your reports and you go, oh no, the data was wrong. I need to fully rerun the whole analysis again. Or your manager loves what you've done, but they want you to go and do that report for another region or for another service, and you've sort of got to go and redo that whole thing again. Get into Excel, make those plots, change those captions. And then of course next month you have to do the whole thing again. So the more we can make this process automated, the easier it is for the analyst, and that buys the analyst more time to do what they're really skilled at, which is actually doing the analytics work, not copying and pasting plots from Excel or R into Word. There must be a better way, and that better way is Quarto. I haven't mentioned R Markdown. Someone in the chat said they'd used R Markdown before. R Markdown is what I think of as the precursor to Quarto. So if you're starting afresh, if you've never heard of either of these technologies before, Quarto is your friend. And Quarto is an open source, so all of the source code is available to look at, technical publishing system. Okay, and we'll talk about what that means in a moment. But the thing I care about as someone working in the NHS is it's free and it helps me do my job better. Okay. So what do I mean by a technical publishing system? Well, it allows me to write technical documents, whether that's HTML files, PDF reports, Word documents, and much, much more, by interweaving actual text, right? So telling a story, writing nice metadata, writing descriptive work, but also embedding code snippets in there. I can see we've got a raised hand. I don't know how people can actually speak up, so maybe put your message in the chat if you're not able to speak up. So yeah, it allows us to combine text, telling stories, with coding, and that can be R code, Python code, SQL, Julia, so many different program languages, and we're going to see how they sort of integrate. But basically, we do some coding, we wrap some text around it to tell a story, and then we can get out many different formats. To give you an idea, these slides are actually built in Quarto. So one of the things you can do is you can build presentations in Quarto. So if you imagine you had a monthly report you wanted as a slide deck, you can create PowerPoint slides, or these are actually HTML slides. In Quarto, you can create formal PDF reports, This one looks a bit dull, but you can brand them and make them look really nice. So if it really needs to be a formal PDF, you can do. You can make HTML reports like this, and this is what we're going to play with today. You can create dashboards as well in Quarto. You can create books. You can create websites. So this is what we mean by sort of technical publishing system. You can actually create lots of different types of tools, all from one document. Okay, so I'm going to show you it first of all. But what I might suggest is, because Binder takes a while to open up, it might be worth just clicking on this link now, so that in sort of 5 minutes when I get you to have a go, it's already loaded up. Okay. So, how do we create a new report? So this is RStudio. If you've never coded before and you've not seen this, don't worry. RStudio works like this. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to go File, New File, and rather than write some R code, I'm going to select Quarto Document. And it's a nice little interactive thing's going to pop up. I'm going to put a title. I'm going to put my name, and I'm going to leave it on HTML. And I'm just going to click Create. I will magnify my screen. Yep, thank you, YiWen. I think once I've clicked Create, I'll be able to magnify the whole screen actually. So I'll do that now. Sorry, I'm just going to blow my nose. I've got a terrible cold at the moment, and it's making me feel very unwell. One sec. And I had to mute myself because I blow my nose very, very loud. Something I inherited from my dad. It's, yes, not delicate. Right, let me just make my screen bigger. You can go to Tools, Global Options, and you can actually enhance the text size here. Unfortunately, you can't do zoom on Binder. Okay, so this is what's been created for me. So I did File, New File, Quarto Document, and click Create. This is a Quarto document. We're looking at the actual code here. So this is code, kind of. It's a special type of code called Quarto. And there are two main bits to a Quarto file. This bit here is called, let me just put a little comment here. It's called a YAML header. This just stands for yet another markup language. It's just an acronym, but we don't need to worry about that today. This is basically where any important metadata lives for your Quarto document, right? So title, who the author is, and what kind of document we're going to create. There's also this thing here called editor visual, and this didn't exist when Quarto first came around. But basically, there are two ways you can write Quarto code. You can write it by hand, so let me create this first maybe, and then I will explain how this works. So I'm going to click render, which is going to turn this code into the final document. So I'm going to click render. I'm going to need to save it. Okay. So what just happened there is it's taken all of this code and this text and turned it into our output. So this is our output, and this is our code. So let's compare them. So we've got a hash here, and this hash means a level 2 heading. So if you've ever sort of in Word highlighted something and set it to heading 2, that's exactly what that's doing, right? And you can see this looks like a little heading. If I get rid of one of the hashes and render it, we get a bigger heading. And if we add a few more, that gives us a smaller heading. And you'll notice each time I'm saving my code and then I'm clicking this render button. And what that's doing is that's processing my report and it's creating this HTML file. So everything under these 3 dashes is your Quarto document. And you'll see there's also a little snippet here which says -- R. And this is where code lives, okay? So we can do lots of text around here, headings, we can write paragraphs, we can talk about the purpose of the report, we can do formatting, and then whenever we want a little bit of code, we can just do dash, 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 R, and then anything we put in here is R code or Python code or SQL code. Now, the purpose of today is not to learn how to do R, so I'm not going to talk too much about these code chunks in detail, but this is where your analyst will do their modeling, right? They will read in the data, filter their data, create their plots. So you can see that you can just sort of mix and match text, code, text, code. So just to recap, simple Quarto document. You've got this special header at the top, which has got your important information, title, author, the type of document. And then you've got your text and you've got your what we call code chunks, and you can switch those around. And then clicking render combines them all together. So it turns this into headings, it turns this into, this is actually bold, and then it actually, every time it gets to a little R chunk, it goes and runs some R code. So it actually will run the R code. And the last thing to say, which actually I didn't put in my slides, but is very important, you'll notice here, sorry, the text is a little bit small. I can't tend to zoom in the screen particularly well. This thing here says source, and this is the way that you can write Quarto. But if you're new to Quarto, there's also an editor called Visual. And you'll see that now we've got a bunch of buttons that probably look quite familiar to you if you've ever used sort of Word or Google Docs. So if I wanted to change this heading, rather than change it in the source by remembering, 1 hash or 2, I can actually go into visual mode, select it, and I can actually use sort of clicky buttons, what you see is what you get, to change that instead. And it will actually change the source code for me. So you don't need to know a lot of code or a lot of, this is actually called markdown formatting, what we're doing here. You don't need to know that to get started. If I wanted to make this italics, I can select it and click the italic button without knowing how to actually change it myself in code. So it just allows us to switch through these different views. Okay, I've done enough talking. What I would like you to do, please, is open the, let me just copy that link again, copy link address. And I'll also put in a link to the slides here as well. So there's the binder. Here's the slides. I'll leave them shared though. What I'd like you to do is open up Binder and go File, New File, Quarto Document. Put in a title and an author. Click Create and try and click Render and see if you can get that document to appear. And then I just want you to have a play. Try changing some text and clicking Render again. I would suggest maybe trying to change the text actually below these 3 dashes, just because these first 6 lines can be a little bit picky and a little bit annoying to work with. So if it's your first go playing with Quarto, just have a go at changing some of the text, maybe have a go with the visual editor and adding some bullets. Just have a bit of a play for a few minutes and let me know how you get on. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking and give you maybe 3 minutes or so to have a play with Quarto. If anyone's sort of done that stuff before, feel free to play a little bit more. If you're quite experienced, feel free to have a nosy in the exercise 3 folder. That's something we're going to be coming to in half an hour. Okay, so I'll be quiet and have a go yourself. Let me know how you get on in the chat. Amazing. Sounds like we've got some documents, which is great. And yeah, the visual editor, I'll put my camera on. The visual editor is so useful. I use it often when I can't remember, despite using Quarto for like 3 or 4 years, you know, how to put an image in, because it will just create the code for me. So great. In the, I think let's get on to some more interesting stuff. But remember, all of this is up and you can play with it, and I will leave the binder up so you can play afterwards. So the purpose of Quarto is to interweave text and code. That's where the real value is, right? And so we're going to see how that kind of works in more detail. So simple plot and text. What was I going to do here? Right. So I've got this folder here called exercise 2. And I've created a simple QMD called simple.qmd. There's also a copy of it when you have a go, just in case you mess anything up and you want a free start. It's always useful to have 2 copies of exercises. So there's a bit more going on in this document. I'm going to render it first and show you what it looks like, and then we're going to go and work out what the bits are. So I'm clicking render, and again, you can see it's actually taking a while. It's just saying it's doing things like running my chunks, working through that code. I'm glad Binder's working well, thanks YiWen. This is a new experiment for me. So this is my report. I say report. It's not particularly detailed, but we've got a plot, right? Now this plot, just to make it really clear, this is not an image. I've not created this and then I'm not loading a PNG into the report. When I clicked render, Quarto went to R, ran a bunch of R code which created this plot, and now it's in the report. So that's the automated processes bit, right? It's about that end-to-end pipeline, and that's the real value here. So how does it work under the hood? Sorry, this is a little bit small. So I'll come back to the YAML header in a minute. So this is all of the code that we need to create our plot. Now in R, you do have extra packages to run code. So dplyr is a package that helps do data wrangling. This is a package for plotting, and this is a package for reading in data. And it's really important that you list all of the libraries that you need for your code to run. So often your analysts will start with listing any sort of code dependencies. And if you forget one of these, you will get an error, right? So that's the sort of thing that trips people up. So we've then got a code chunk which is just reading in the data. So there's a data set here, CSV file, which is in the same location as my Quarto report, and that's actually reading in that CSV. This snippet here, hopefully it's readable. I think a lot of dplyr code is quite readable, and R code is readable. It's saying, take the workforce data and then filter it so that we only have data where the month column is bigger than this particular date. Okay, so we're just keeping data from 2020 onwards. So that hasn't actually created any outputs yet. That's just all doing some code analysis in the background. Right, then we've got the last little bit. This is a plot. Again, don't worry about the R code for now, but you can kind of see that we are putting month on the x-axis, total on the y-axis, and we've got some points and some lines, and I've made the points blue. And this is just where I change the labels. So hopefully that's mostly sort of intuitive what's going on. Don't need to worry too much about how it all works today. But this is the nice thing. This is a sentence, right? So this code chunk, 3 dashes, and then the letter R here means I'm going to go put in a bunch of R code. So you can do these little chunks of R code, but you can also do what we call inline R code. So it looks like it's a seamless sentence, but actually Quarto is reading the text, and then it will go away and do some calculations and actually embed some R code directly in that sentence. So here is a plot of the number of NHS employees in England since, and because we've done that date, that filter date, what I've done is I've taken the workforce data, looked at the month column, and found the smallest, which here it means the oldest date. So that's going to tell me what the sort of oldest date is in our new data set. And the reason I've done this in code rather than write January 2020, because I could have just done that, is this is now responsive and automated, right? So I click render, I get my plot, right? Let's say I now want to go back in time and I want to include the 2020 data. So I want to go back to maybe, I don't know, let's include 2019 as well. So we want everything bigger than December 2018. When I click render, that data set is going to filter. So my plot should get bigger, but also the text here changes. Now this is just numbers, and I mean I'm a data analyst, so I like YYYMMDD dates. But we could write snippets of code to turn this into something human readable as well. So it would say January 2019. That's possible. And you see now our plot goes back to 2019. If I want to do the whole report for just more recent data, the last year or so, I can do that. So I've changed it just in one place, but we see the data changes in the plot and the text. Okay. And this approach works. We can do all sorts of things. So we can say like the average number of midwives working in West Lothian in 2019 is insert a bunch of R code that calculates that number. So you don't have that real pain point of, as an analyst, your data changes and then you have to go back to the report and find all of the numbers that you wrote in the report and cross-check them, right? So the big benefit with a manager head-on is that you are reducing the likelihood of mistakes and typos. So I want you to have another play with this now. In the slides, go to the next slide. If you can go back into Binder, you should be able to open exercise 2 simple. I'd like you to render that first and just make sure it appears. Have a go at changing the filter and re-rendering. And you can also have a go at changing the plot as well. So here color equals blue. Have a go at changing that to red or a color of your choice. You could have a go at the labels. But I think the important thing to see is you can change, if you change this here, you're going to see it change in a number of places. And that's where the value really starts to happen with Quarto. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to be quiet for 5 minutes and let you have a play. If you have any questions outside of this stuff as well, any more technical questions or any questions, please do pop stuff in the chat. I'd much rather pivot and go off on tangents than stick rigidly to what I've sort of planned to cover today. Okay, so let's have 5 minutes playing around with the exercise 2 Quarto doc. Okay, I'm going to start chatting again. There's been some good questions in the chat that have brought up a few things I need to tell you about. So Steph was saying, do you need to close the render window before a new one can be rendered? It's a little bit weird. We're currently using RStudio in the browser, which is not normal. If I just have my normal RStudio open, so this is my local RStudio, it basically just creates a HTML. So if I click render, what actually happens is it will create a new file here. I'll show you in my local laptop just to show you what it would be like in person. For some reason that's not appearing. Did I not save it? Yeah, normally I would get, there we go, simple.html. So it just creates a file. Now the really key thing is, and Helen has pointed it out, how sometimes stakeholders can be a bit confused by it, right? HTML is a really useful format. People think in their heads that HTML means the file is online, and then they think about data and they think about privacy and they start to get stressed, or they just never dealt with HTML files before and they find it a bit confusing. HTML is just a file. It's not online. If I wanted to email this to my colleague YiWen, I could just select this file and email it her or put it on Slack, right? It's just a file. And everyone has got on their computer a browser, right? Whether it's Edge or Chrome or Firefox. Not everyone's got Adobe, PDF reader. People have got different types of Word. So actually HTML is a really useful format because everyone has got a web browser, and it's web browsers that open HTML files. But yeah, stakeholders can be a bit confused by them sometimes. And sometimes people don't like it, and part of that is learning how to style stuff, right? And the styling of Quarto documents depends on the type of document you're creating. So if you're creating a PDF, you'll need to use a different branding approach. You need to use some latex styling, which is a language for turning stuff into PDFs, or typist. If you're doing Word docs, you can actually use Word doc branded templates and apply those. And if you're doing HTML, you need CSS. Although there is a new technology, I say new, for anyone who's come across, there is a new thing that is making styling of Quarto a lot easier, called brand.yaml, which is where you make a single file and then a lot of the sort of branding is sort of magically done for you. But yeah, people don't love HTML sometimes. The reason I love it, two reasons. One, you can give the impression of interactivity without needing R or Python. So if anyone's used R Shiny or Python Dash or something similar, Streamlit, those proper web apps, we sometimes call them dashboards, when there's lots and lots of interactivity, going and running statistical models, you need both your app and you need R running somewhere or Python running somewhere. And that makes it quite difficult to actually deploy your tool and put it out there, because you need then to think about, well, how's it going to work? Where do I put it? You start having to work out how to deploy apps. It gets a headache. And often when people want managers, when managers want a dashboard that's interactive, they just want to play around with the data. They want to search tables, they want to filter tables, they want to zoom in on a plot, they want to zoom in on a map. And HTML widgets are little tools like Leaflet, which is used for mapping, which give the impression of being like interactive, but don't actually need R or Python in the background, because basically HTML is doing all of the heavy lifting. So the nice thing about HTML over PDF or Word is you can embed a little zoomable or hoverable map, or you can embed a plotly plot, which allows you to zoom in on a plot and hover over it, right? This feels like shiny because it's interactive, but there's no R or Python needed in the background running when you're running this app. So that's another benefit of HTML. The final benefit, sorry, I said I'd go off in tangents, and here's our tangents. As Chantel said, HTML is really accessible. And just for example, I haven't actually talked about this bit yet. Oh, hiding the driving code. Perfect. Okay, yes, perfect timing. Thank you. So this bit here I didn't talk about earlier. So when, let me get rid of this line of code for a second. In fact, let me get rid of all of these. So if I just run this with title, author, date, and format, what we get is this. Doesn't look as pretty, right? So we're seeing the code, and we're also seeing some warnings. So basically when it read in the CSV, because I didn't explicitly say that the month column is a date and the total column is a double, it just gave me a message to say, hey, we're making some assumptions about your data. This is great for learning, for internal documentation, for sharing with analysts, but managers do not want to see this. And so the way that you turn off this, there are two ways. One is under every chunk, you write a special Quarto comment, which is a hash, and then this bright pipe symbol. I'm just going to put it in the chat for you. All right. And you would do something like echo : false. Ooh, with a space. You see how that went the right color. Echo : space false. I'll put that in the chat. That will turn off echo, meaning, do you want me to show this code in the final report? Okay, so I've set that. And now when I go to I've lost my render now. Oh, it's because I'm in our studio. I'm jumping between the two. Let me go back to Binder. Okay. So rendering this. Oh, hang on. Try again. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. So let me delete this bit here. So what I'm expecting is all of the code to appear apart from the ggplot code. So there's the code for loading the libraries, but the ggplot code is not here. All right. But as an analyst, you don't want to go through and add echo false, echo false, echo false to every single chunk. So instead, we can set up here, execute echo false. And that is basically saying, as a default, I don't want to show any code. But if I did want to show the code for maybe just this one, I could say true. So now I'm expecting none of the code to show except for the last little snippet. Yep, so now we've got no code apart from the ggplot code. Now you notice I'm still getting this message here. These are useful warnings, but not something we want in our output code. So I can also say, is it warning or warnings? As I type, yeah, it corrects for me. That's nice. Warning false. Oh, by the way, I mess this up all the time. The formatting of this top bit is a little bit of a pain, and I find myself constantly either just Googling and looking for an example I can copy and paste from, because the spacing in this little bit here needs to be right. So don't worry if you're copying and pasting. Okay, cool. So now we've got no warnings, and we're only showing the code for that bit. So hopefully, Hajiro, that gives you helps you with that hiding the code. Echo is false is what you're looking for. And Chantel talked about how HTML is best for accessibility. I'm a big fan of doing stuff accessible. It doesn't take too much effort, but people neglect it. And if you want to make your plots accessible, you can add fig.alt in a similar way. So hash and a dash, fig.alt equals. Now, the hard bit is actually writing good quality alt text for plots. That's a whole other talk in itself. But, increasing trends for workforce statistics, maxing at whatever the number is, right? So I've written some alt text, and now if I render, there will be alt text in that plot. All right, so easy win. Fantastic. Next, embed variables output within the text. You bang on. This is exactly what we're about to do for exercise 3. So thank you for being ahead of me with your brain. Why would you want to show the code for the plot? Maybe not in a for a management for a report, but maybe for a presentation. So these these slides I've made presenting at a conference. I want to show you code snippets, right, to show you how that code works. So I might want some real code and actually to show it you and actually have it real to make sure it runs. So I use this for teaching all the time. Also for internal documents, if you're explaining how a model works, you might want to show the code as well as actually write the text. Okay. We have 15 minutes left. I have one more exercise I want to show you. And this is where it all kind of comes together. So for those of you who've dabbled with R before, hopefully under Quarto this will be the newer stuff. For those of you who are more managery and Quarto is a whole new world, I just want to introduce you to this concept of parameterization. So exercise 3, I've made a slightly more advanced Quarto doc. I'm not expecting you to, let me just go into exercise 3. I'm not expecting you to understand all the code, right? The purpose is to give you a feel of what's a bit more real, okay? So we've got lots of stuff going on here, lots of libraries. But this code creates a more complicated report. And by the way, this is using real data. So this Excel sheet that I'm loading, the one that's in here is taken straight from the NHS workforce page. And this is the report you get. So it says data for July. It's for the Northeast North Cumbria. I'm based in Whitley Bay in the Northeast, so it's my local data. And it's telling us how many full-time equivalent staff were working across all NHS services in this area in July, which is a lot of people. And there's a trend graph showing the 3 biggest hospitals. And we've also got, as well, a table, which is sortable. You know, I mentioned HTML widgets earlier. It feels clicky, it feels sortable, but this is just a static file. I can email this to someone, I can dump it on SharePoint. I don't need R or Python for this to be interactive. Same with this plot, right? You can zoom in. And there's also like a clicky table of contents. So what do I want to show you? So this sentence here is quite nice. It says, we can see the organisation with the most midwives is Newcastle upon Tyne with 244 staff. And then you can see that in here, right? So this is text, variables embedded within the text. Okay, let's hop back and look at the code. Again, not too worried about all of the code. I'm just going to zoom in because it's gone small again and show you the details. So this YAML is a lot more, this heading is a lot more detailed here. This is just setting up the nice little table of contents. This you've already seen. This is new. Okay, so we've now got params, and I've got 2 parameters. One is the ICS that I'm interested in looking at, and one is the month that I'm interested in. Okay, so when I read in the data, rather than reading in a file name, you'll notice I've got a little bit here, and basically, if I've set the parameter to be July 2025, it's going to read in the July data. If I've set it to be June, it's going to be reading in the June data. Now, they're the only 2 files I've got, so that's the only 2 possible month years you can use, right? I've also got the ICS name, Northeast and North Cumbria. This is used a few places, right? So, in fact, I've probably got it in here. It might be cleaner to see. So yeah, 2 parameters, the ICS name and the month year. So I use them in my title, workforce statistics for data 4, right? So what's the trust and what's the year? And the way I do that is with a little backtick, the letter R, which means I'm going to write some R code. And then the way that I grab that variable is I say params $. So from the params, grab the ICS name. So this will then say NHS workforce statistics for Northeast and North Cumbria. When I clean the data, don't worry too much about how I'm cleaning the data. I'm just filtering, I'm just selecting some particular columns. Rather than say filter ICS is equal to Northeast, I'm putting in that variable now, right? So this means that I can change the the ICS in one place, and it will affect multiple bits of my document. Right, so I'm just filtering to say the ICS defined at the top. And the same in my text here. Maybe it's easier to show in here actually. Where's it gone? Here we go. The table below shows the total number of doctors for each organisation within. And then because I want to say the ICS name, I do a single backtick, the letter R to say I'm going to do some R code, and then params $ICS name. Right? And then this is a little bit of code which is basically working out, so what is the biggest number in the midwives column for a particular organisation name. Don't worry too much about the actual code and how we're calculating it. What I want you to understand is that we're using this params ICS name in multiple places, and now if we change it in one place, it's going to change throughout the document. Okay, just let me zoom back in. So to demonstrate this, I feel like I'm setting up for a magic trick here, but to be honest, the first time I found this years ago, it really did feel like magic. So this is the current report, right? North East and North Cumbria, July 2025. We've got Newcastle, so these are all North East trusts, and we've got the text here. I'm going to change this to June, and I'm going to open up, I can never remember all the names of the different ICSs. This little link here is going to give me, let's go for Norfolk, copy that one, and I'm going to paste that in instead, make sure it's formatted correctly. Okay, so we've changed the month year to June and the ICS name to Norfolk and Waveney. Okay, and like magic, the title has changed, the date has changed, this little infographic has changed. These are now showing the top 3 biggest hospitals in that particular ICS, and our table and our text has updated the most midwives is, right? So this is where the real power of parameterization happens. So hopefully if you're a manager, you can see where this becomes really valuable, because you can just start to set up your sort of template, and then it's just a case of rerunning the reports. If you're a Quarto nerd on the call, the key things to see are that we define our params in the YAML file. And there is a snippet of code. I don't have it to hand. I might just find it while you have a play with the last 5 minutes, which will allow you to basically, you can write a little bit of code that will say, go and run this report for these 10 different ICSs. So you can sort of loop over or iterate over a template to create multiple outputs as well. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We've only got 8 minutes left before we switch over for Ben's keynote and Ben's clap. The brand YAML, yeah, sure thing, Ella. Oh, hi, nice to see you, Ella. Oh yeah, I forgot I actually put one in here. So this brand YAML file, basically it allows you to define certain color palettes, and then they will be used by default. So we're not actually using all of these in our report. We're using the foreground black, the black background, and the primary color, which is giving us that blue here, and probably that blue in the highlight. So if you want to play with the brand.yaml, try changing foreground, background, or primary to one of these variables at the top. So if I change the primary to purple and save it and rerun the report, hopefully that will come in. Oh yes, you can do drop down lists as well, Jenny. Let me find that for you. By the way, I'm going to keep chatting, but if you do want to have a go, now is a really good time to have a go. I will keep chatting to people because you've got really good questions. But if you want to play around, open the binder, which I've lost again. Copy link. And just have a play with exercise 3. I've got some suggested things, which is basically just try changing the ICS and rendering it. But yeah, let's do quick fire questions for 5 minutes. Oh, and yes, about reaching out, you're very welcome to reach out to me. All of the stuff is on my website, and you can find me on socials at statsrhian or statsrhian@gmail.com. Oh, did I? Yeah. should be stats plural on socials, or contact the data science strategy unit team. Very happy to follow up with stuff, and feel free to sort of share these materials. So quick questions: brand.yaml and drop-down list and have the report re-render. Yeah, so Quarto parameterization shiny select. Is that what I'm looking for? Let's have a look. Yeah, it's definitely possible. It basically, you just define a little drop down first of all of the allowed ones, and then it will pop up as a little drop down. I can't remember how to do it off the top of my head. I think there's a little snippet of code I can write. I might just put some stuff on the website after to give you a proper example, Jenny. So if you check that the workshop website later, I will add some stuff to it. I'll just put on a bit of Q&A section. What else have we got? Brand.yaml. Yeah, so the idea with brand.yaml is you can use it to style your Shiny apps, your Quarto docs, all in one place. So you have to be, it doesn't sort of do everything for free, but if you're using HTML files or you're using, I guess a lot of Shiny is built in HTML, it's basically allowing you to define the sort of standard, I guess, sort of bootstrap theming colors, primary, secondary, alert in one place. Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I will point you maybe to a good talk around brand.yaml. It's a 5-minute learning thing, but it's quite fun and works really nicely. Moving from R Markdown to Quarto, what are the key differences to be aware of? So it's quite easy to switch between the two, thankfully. The big changes that happened, you used to do echo equals true in here for our Markdown. I think that actually still works, but the preferred Quarto way to do it is like this. So that formatting has changed. And also the way that you would define, you couldn't do this in our Markdown. You had to have a special little R chunk at the top that did like, it was something like param options or chunk options equals, and you had to sort of write them in R code. The big win for Quarto compared to R Markdown is Quarto works with Python as well. So, for example, in our team, we have a bunch of R users, a bunch of Python users. You can use Quarto without needing R installed on your computer, without needing our studio. You can use lots of different tools to work with Quarto. So you can use Quarto entirely without R, which is the really big win. Oh, thanks for the link about brand.yaml, YiWen. A few people are putting hands up. Just feel free to put in the chat. If I raise hands you, it puts you on the screen, which you're very welcome to do. We've got 3 minutes left. What I will probably do is just try and write up some better answers to those Q&A at the end, and I'll share them on LinkedIn and or the workshop website. But yeah, any more for any more. Hopefully that's been just a bit of an overview, and if you do have more technical details, feel free to reach out and we can chat more. Parameterized reports are really, really powerful. Once you start playing with them, Ella, you'll really enjoy them.